Remember when Saturday mornings meant Zack Morris freezing time and Jessie sobbing she was so excited? Behind those bright Bayside hallways, this show was rewritten, recast, and nearly canceled. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts you never knew about Saved by the Bell. Number 15. The sun-soaked Pacific Palisades hallways, the lockers, the Max Diner, none of it started in California. It started in Indianapolis, Indiana, as a Disney Channel sitcom called Good Morning Miss Bliss, set at John F. Kennedy Jr. High in 1988. NBC President Brandon Tartikoff originally developed the concept as a primetime vehicle inspired by his 6th grade teacher. He hired producer Peter Engel and writer Sam Bobrick to build it. NBC passed on the first version. Disney Channel picked it up for 13 episodes. It flopped. Only then did Tartikoff strip the concept down, relocate the kids to California, and reformat everything for Saturday morning. Here is the part that almost stopped everything. Engel hated the Saturday morning pitch. He told Tartikoff directly, "No, get someone else. I don't want to do a Saturday morning show." His wife eventually talked him into taking the job. That reluctant decision created the entire TNBC Saturday morning block, which went on to launch California Dreams, Hang Time, City Guys, and a decade of Peter Engel teen sitcoms. The 4 original cast members who appear in both the Disney episodes and the NBC run, Gosselaar, Diamond, Voorhees, and Dennis Haskins as Belding, are carrying a show that already died once. Think about that the next time you see those Bayside hallways. And if the show once lived in Indiana, the original pilot cast was even stranger. Number 14, Mark Paul Gosselaar is the only Zack Morris anyone has ever known, but he was not in the very first 1987 NBC pilot at all. That unaired version was packed with future stars about to become major television faces somewhere else. The original Miss Bliss pilot featured Brian Austin Green as a serious student named Adam Moncrief, Jonathan Brandis as a bad boy named Michael, and Jaleel White as class clown Bobby. Haley Mills was the only performer carried from that pilot into the Disney Channel series. Everyone else was recast from scratch. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. Green went to Beverly Hills, 90210. White became the lead of Sequest DSV. One pilot room, run by producer Peter Engel, nearly launched 4 of the most recognizable teen faces of the decade in the same sitting. By the time NBC rebranded everything as Saved by the Bell, every actor from that original pilot was already working on a competing show. The entire teen TV ecosystem of the 1990s was essentially one casting session that fell apart and scattered into separate franchises. When you watch the Indiana-era Miss Bliss episodes in syndication, you are looking at a ghost of a completely different show built around a cast that became famous somewhere else. The Zack who replaced all of them was not even presenting his natural self on camera, which takes us somewhere nobody expected. Number 13. The sun-bleached California surfer hair that made Zack Morris the face of every Tiger Beat cover was not natural. Mark Paul Gosselaar is half Indonesian on his mother's side, and that blonde look came from a bottle. Gosselaar confirmed it on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon in 2015. "My mother is this tiny little Indonesian woman. People don't know that Zack Morris is half Asian. That's why the hair, the blonde hair, was dyed for all those years. People think, oh, it was your natural hair color. It was not. It was color by Clairol. The production team re-dyed it approximately every 2 weeks throughout the 1989 to 1993 run. And it was not merely a character choice. It was a branding decision. Zack's California blonde image was central to how NBC marketed the show across lunchboxes, magazine covers, and mall tours. Gosselaar has said producers initially assumed the show would be canceled quickly, which is partly why his look shifted slightly from season to season as the urgency of maintaining a precise image faded. What started as a manufactured identity became iconic by accident. Every freeze frame, every time out, every moment Gosselaar stares into the camera is held together by a bi-weekly hair appointment. And if Zack's image was reverse engineered for the camera, Lisa Turtle's entire existence was reverse engineered in the casting room. Number 12, Lark Voorhees glides through Bayside in shoulder pads and one-of-a-kind hats as the school's resident fashion authority. She is completely irreplaceable in that role, and she was never supposed to be there at all. Per producer Peter Engel's memoir, I Was Saved by the Bell, the character of Lisa Turtle was written as a wealthy Jewish girl from Long Island. Voorhees walked into the audition room and rewrote the character entirely with her presence alone. When casting raised concerns, Engel reportedly replied, "Well, she is now," and the character was rewritten on the spot. Even then, it was not smooth sailing, An NBC executive later told Engel to fire Voorhees because he wasn't connecting with her. He changed his mind only after attending a live taping of a Lisa-centric episode and witnessing the audience's reaction for himself. Despite that clear connection, the writers never fully adjusted to the character they had actually cast. Lisa rarely received a full A-plot or a genuine love interest storyline across the entire run. That gap becomes even more striking given that Voorhees and Gosselaar were in a real relationship for approximately 3 years during production. Every Lisa stuck in the background scene reflects a character the show created and then never quite figured out how to properly serve. And Lisa was not the only Bayside lead secretly rewritten around whoever walked through the door. Number 11. Mario Lopez in a wrestling singlet, perpetually flexing, calling Jessie mama. It feels like AC Slater was always exactly who he was. He was not. The part was written for a completely different kind of performer. Per producer Peter Engel and Lopez's own account, the character was originally conceived as a young John Travolta type, a white working-class Italian-American street kid in the Vinnie Barbarino mold from Welcome Back, Cotter. After struggling to find the right actor, Engel opened auditions to all ethnicities. Lopez auditioned and, according to Engel, blew everyone out of the water within 2 days. The character was then rebuilt around what Lopez could actually do. His real wrestling background and genuine dancing ability were both retrofitted into Slater's identity. Lopez confirmed the original concept to NPR in January 2024. I think the guy was supposed to be Italian heritage until the college years, when a storyline revealed his father had changed the family name from Sanchez to Slater to gain entry to West Point. Lopez was reportedly paid $3,500 per episode during the original run, per a December 2020 GQ profile. That is, 3 lead characters built entirely around their actors rather than any pre-planned identity. And NBC's censorship department was about to rewrite the show's most famous episode in a completely different direction. Number 10. Elizabeth Berkley clutching Mark Paul Gosselaar, sobbing, "I'm so excited, I'm so scared," in the most parodied very special episode of the decade. What you did not know is that Berkley was playing a completely different scene than the one that made it to air. Producer Peter Engel revealed in his memoir that the original script co-written with Tom Tenowich had Jessie addicted to actual amphetamines. NBC's Standards and Practices Department vetoed it. Standards and Practices vetoed it, saying speed was too serious for Saturday mornings. What if she gets hooked on caffeine pills? Someone suggested. The S&P folks talked it over and told us caffeine pills would get a green light. Engel was openly unhappy. "I wasn't pleased about it. After all, the average caffeine pill was the equivalent of a cup of coffee, so we might as well have had Jessie get addicted to Earl Grey. The red-hot cinnamon candy Berkley swallows on screen were standing in for the substitute substance." The actors played the breakdown at the full emotional intensity of the original script. That is why the caffeine pill version reads as wildly disproportionate. Berkley was performing a near-overdose scene over something sold at a gas station. NBC's censorship constraint turned a serious addiction story into the most mocked scene in the show's history, and accidentally made the performance more memorable than any realistic version could have been. That was not the only episode where NBC inserted itself directly into the story. Number 9. No Hope with Dope is the episode where the gang confronts movie star Johnny Dakota for secretly using marijuana. It ends with a chant that has been quoted ironically ever since. What most people missed is who delivers the closing message. NBC chairman Brandon Tartikoff appears on camera and breaks the fourth wall. "Hi, I'm Brandon Tartikoff, chairman of NBC Entertainment, and I've got a hit idea for the new fall season. Don't do drugs." The cast chants, "There's no hope with dope." This is the same executive who developed the show's concept, named it, pushed it onto Saturday morning, and personally gave Engel his episode orders. Now he is the closing celebrity in his own production. The appearance was not purely vanity, though. It aired in the wake of the Children's Television Act of 1990, which required broadcast networks to demonstrate educational and informational intent in children's programming. Inserting the NBC chairman into an anti-drug public service announcement was partly a broadcast license compliance gesture dressed as television. The most ridiculed scene in the show's entire run is also NBC checking a federal regulatory box. Dennis Haskins, as Mr. Belding, is standing right there watching it happen. And if NBC's Saturday morning strategy ran deeper than any single episode, the whole show was built on a bet that nobody had actually tried before. Number 8. The bright TNBC era opening sequence, kids racing to school, lockers slamming. It is the platonic image of what Saturday morning television looked like for an entire decade. It was also an experiment nobody knew was going to work. NBC did not have a teen sitcom strategy in 1989. It had a cost problem. Executives were actively exploring cheaper live-action alternatives to expensive Saturday morning animation. Tartikoff handed Engel a 7-episode commitment and told him to build a live-action teen show for Saturday mornings. To prove there was an audience before the official Saturday premiere, NBC aired the show on Sunday, August 20th, 1989, in primetime opposite a Family Ties rerun with Casey Kasem guest hosting a dance contest. Tartikoff called Engel at 7 the next morning. "You're a success. You beat Family Ties." Engel described early live audience tapings as feeling like Beatlemania. Kids hanging over the railings, screaming and laughing, and starstruck. That audience energy convinced Tartikoff to expand the order. That one experiment created the entire TNBC block, officially branded in 1992, which launched California Dreams, Hang Time, City Guys, and a template for teen Saturday television that shaped the rest of the decade. All of it traces back to Engel reluctantly taking a job he did not want. All right, we're at the halfway mark, and things are about to get even wilder. Before we hit the top 7, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Saved by the Bell quote or moment? Drop it in the comments. And if you're enjoying this, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel grow. Number 7. Tiffany Thiessen as Kelly Kapowski, the cheerleader on every locker poster, and the show's endgame romantic lead. The role almost went to someone who became a completely different 1990s icon. Per Peter Engel's memoir, the part came down to 3 finalists: Thiessen, Elizabeth Berkley, and a then-unknown Jenny Garth, who would land Beverly Hills 902-101 year later. Engel wrote that Thiessen looked like a deer in the headlights at her first audition, and her delivery wasn't stellar on her callback. What put her over the top was visibility. She had appeared on the cover of Teen magazine after winning its Great Model Search in 1988 and had been named CoverGirl's Model of the Year in 1989. The producers loved Berkley so much that when she didn't land Kelly, they invented an entirely new character, Jessie Spano, from scratch to keep her in the cast. Berkley had originally auditioned for a different Miss Bliss role and been told she was too tall to be paired with Gosselaar. Here is what that chain actually produced. If Garth had landed Kelly, she likely does not book Beverly Hills 90201. If Berkley had landed Kelly, Jessie Spano does not exist, and a very specific post-show career swerve never happens. That brings us directly to the next part of Berkley's story. Number 6. In the Hot Sunday music video, Kelly and Lisa wear cutout leotards while Jessie appears in a comparatively covered one-piece. That was not a costume coincidence. It was a producer-mandated rule applied to every swimsuit scene and photo shoot throughout the entire run. Elizabeth Berkley told Bethany Frankel in 2013 that producers explicitly required her to wear a one-piece during those appearances because Jessie was written as a feminist character. Berkley argued the logic should run the opposite way, that a feminist character should be free to dress however she chooses, but producers maintained the restriction for the full 4 seasons, including promotional materials and photo shoots. After the show ended, Berkley personally lobbied producer Charles Evans for the lead in director Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls in 1995. She called his office calling herself Nomi and told Verhoeven at her audition that there was no one else who could play that role. She got the part. After the film bombed, she told The Hollywood Reporter she was locked out of acting for approximately 2 years and was dropped by her agency. Berkley's experience on Saved by the Bell and her choice of Showgirls are arguably the same career arc, an actor swinging hard against the creative leash she had worn for 4 years. Every Jessie poolside scene is a small producer decision hiding a much larger creative tension. And Berkley was not the only cast member carrying something unspoken onto that set. Number 5. Zack and Kelly's endgame romance, Slater and Jessie's sparring, Screech's eternal unrequited crush on Lisa. Most of those on-screen pairings had real-life versions running simultaneously behind the camera. Gosselaar told People magazine in 2009, "All of us dated at one point or another. It was incestuous." He dated Lark Voorhees for approximately 3 years during the original run, and also dated both Thiessen and Berkley at different points. Lopez and Thiessen also briefly dated. Producer Peter Engel had to intervene. Gosselaar told The Hollywood Reporter, "Sometimes we loved each other and sometimes we hated each other." There were moments where Peter Engel had to sit us down and say, "Guys, we have to film a show here," because sometimes we weren't talking to each other. Absolutely, but we were so young. The Gosselaar-Voorhees relationship being the show's longest-running real couple also explains a persistent on-screen pattern. The show gave Lisa virtually no genuine romantic storylines with the main group, apparently steering around what was happening off-camera with the actor playing her would-be love interest. Every awkward Zack and Lisa scene reads differently knowing the actors were in a relationship for 3 years. Every carefully avoided storyline makes more sense in that context. Not everyone in the cast was tangled in the love triangle drama, though. One cast member was operating from a very different financial reality. Number 4. Screech mugs behind everyone else at the max. Always in frame, always the punchline. He was also the show's most financially vulnerable lead. Ed Alonzo, who played Max the diner owner, told Fox News Digital he believed he may have been the highest paid person on set during some early episodes. Dustin Diamond filed for bankruptcy in California in 2001. By 2006, he was selling Save Screech's House t-shirts, with a deliberate extra E to avoid copyright issues, at $15 each, trying to raise $250,000 to prevent foreclosure on his Wisconsin home. Dan Block, Diamond's longtime friend, reported that Diamond received a residual check for $12.74 in 2022. Diamond's resentment surfaced in his 2009 memoir Behind the Bell. He later told Dr. Mehmet Oz he had not written most of it himself. The cast effectively cut him off. He was excluded from the 2009 People reunion, the 2015 Tonight Show sketch, and the 2020 Peacock revival. When Diamond was diagnosed with stage 4 small cell carcinoma in January 2021 and died on February 1, 2021. Block said Lark Voorhees was the only original cast member who left him a voicemail. Diamond spent the entire run as the show's most visible comic presence and left it as its most isolated member. Every Screech scene is the lowest paid lead carrying the runtime that built everyone else's career. Number 3. In the senior year, a leather-jacketed girl named Tori Scott appears in the Bayside hallways across multiple episodes. Then graduation arrives and Tori is simply gone, while Kelly and Jessie, absent for weeks, are suddenly back. That is not a continuity mistake. It is a production emergency spliced together and aired as a normal season. In 1992, NBC unexpectedly ordered 11 additional episodes after the show had already filmed its graduation finale. Tiffany Thiessen and Elizabeth Berkley had committed to other projects and refused new contracts. Producers cast Leanna Creel, one of a set of triplets previously in Parent Trap the Third, as Tori Scott for 10 of those extra episodes. NBC then aired the Tori episodes interleaved with previously filmed Kelly and Jessie episodes, without ever acknowledging where any character had gone. Author Chuck Klosterman named this glitch the Tori Paradox in his 2003 essay Being Zack Morris, collected in Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. Creel told TAD she was a UCLA student paying tuition with the role and had no idea about the airing strategy until fans began questioning the inconsistency. Syndicated reruns mixed the two blocks without explanation, which is why the senior year always felt off. That weird vibe was never your imagination. The Tori paradox is a continuity accident. The next one is a continuity prop, and it became the most recognizable object in the show's entire legacy. Number 2. Zack calls time out and produces a phone the size of a Coke can. Every kid watching in 1989 thought it was a comedy prop. It was not. It was a real product with a price tag that signals exactly what the writers were saying about this character. The phone was a Motorola DynaTAC 8000X, the first commercially available cellular phone to receive FCC approval in the United States, sold in 1984 at $3,995. The DynaTAC weighed 28 ounces and stood approximately 10 inches tall. The same device appears in Wall Street as a prop for Gordon Gekko and in American Psycho for Patrick Bateman. Two characters defined entirely by money. Its nickname in technology journalism is now the Zack Morris phone because of how completely the show redefined it for an entire generation. The writers used it as deliberate shorthand for Zack's privilege. In 1989, no teenager owned a cellular phone. A nearly $4,000 handset implied a household income most Bayside families would not realistically have. The DynaTAC 8000X line was discontinued in 1994. The same year the show ended, making its on-screen run a near-perfect overlap with the device's commercial lifespan. Every "Mom, can you pick me up" joke is also establishing that Zack's family has more money than anyone else in that zip code. The show that made that phone iconic almost did not survive long enough to film a second episode. Number 1. 4 seasons. 6 lead characters, the Max, the Lockers, Time Out, the Giant Phone, the Tori Paradox, the whole architecture of a decade. Now watch it almost not happen. NBC's initial commitment was only 7 episodes. Peter Engel was convinced the show would be canceled after that block, and the production ran under permanent cancellation anxiety through nearly the entire first season. Critics savaged the pilot. Engel described the initial reviews as absolutely devastating. What kept it alive was a confrontation. Engel walked into Brandon Tartikoff's office and refused to leave until NBC expanded the order. In his memoir, he wrote, "I popped up like a gopher and shouted, 13 or security." "Okay," he barked. "You've got 13. That extension kept the show alive long enough to build a genuine audience. What convinced Tartikoff was the live audience energy from early tapings. Engel described kids hanging over the railings, screaming and laughing, and starstruck. And he used that visceral response as his argument in that office. Those extra 6 episodes are why the show produced Slater, Jessie, the Caffeine Pill episode, the Tori Paradox, and the entire TNBC block. Without that standoff, Bayside graduates after 7 episodes. There is no Mario Lopez hosting Career, no Showgirls, no 2020 Peacock Revival, and no 1990s teen sitcom genre as we know it. Every iconic moment after episode 7 only exists because a producer refused to leave a network president's office until he got 6 more. Saved by the Bell only exists because a canceled Disney show was relocated from Indiana to California and forced onto Saturday morning by a chairman who later appeared on camera in the anti-drug episode. The blonde hair was bottled, the lead jock was written Italian, the fashion icon was recast on the spot, and the show's most famous breakdown was a network swap from Speed to Candy. 2 main characters vanished mid-season. One lead received a $12 residual check. And the whole thing nearly ended after 7 episodes. None of it was designed to work the way it did. If this video surprised you, drop your favorite fact in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves this movie as much as you do. And as always, time out. We'll see you next time.